Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's BU Professional Development webinar, 7 Ideas for Workplace Health from a Silicon Valley Professional. My name is Jeff Murphy, and I'm a member of the Career Programs team here in the Office of Alumni Relations. Today's webinar is sponsored by BU Alumni Relations and is offered to our 326,000 alumni around the globe. Throughout your career, BU is committed to helping you define and achieve your professional goals. We aim to do this by providing alumni with a series of valuable online tools and social media communities. I know that we have alumni joining us today from faraway places like Guangzhou, China, Tehran, Iran, France, Beirut, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, here in the US, in Redwood, California, Washington, D.C., Loxahatchee, Florida, New York City, and as always, dozens of Massachusetts alumni from towns like Middleborough, West Roxbury, Franklin, Beverly, Weymouth, Framingham, and more. For each and every one of you out there, please know that we really do value your opinion on this and every program that we offer. Before I introduce today's speaker, some brief housekeeping notes. As you know by now, this webinar is being hosted on the Adobe Connect online meeting platform. If you experience any trouble with the audio or visual portions of this presentation, I'll ask that you please contact Adobe Connect directly. If you want to jot down a phone number, it's 1-800-422-3623. Today's presentation is being recorded and will soon be made available for on-demand viewing on the Alumni Association website found at bu.edu/alumni. Our speaker today is very eager to answer any questions you may have, and you are welcome to submit them throughout the presentation using the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. We hope to get to as many questions as we can during today's webinar. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day, BU alumna Reena Vokoun. After graduating with a Bachelor's of Business Administration in Marketing and Management from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and a Master of Science in Advertising and Communications from here at BU, Reena spent several years working in corporate America, working in marketing, sales, and business development roles for large Fortune 500 companies such as Google, Yahoo, Reebok, and GE, while also being a certified health and wellness professional at the same time. Reena's experiences and witnessing the experiences of others during those years showed her how much overwork, stress, a lack of work-life balance, and a lack of taking care of your well-being can impact your health and life. Reena became passionate about educating others and helping them take control of their lives in these areas. Today, Reena is the founder of her own company, Passion Fit, and is an expert on consumer and corporate wellness, working with individuals, companies, nonprofits, schools, and universities on how to incorporate fitness, nutrition, and mindfulness into their lives in order to maximize productivity, create work-life balance, and lead a healthy lifestyle. Reena is also a mom and wife and has a holistic and unique perspective to help others balance it all. Reena, thank you so much for being here today and for doing this presentation to help our alumni balance it all and lead successful and healthy lives. I'm going to go ahead and get your slides up, and as soon as you see them, the floor is all yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff, and welcome to all my fellow BU alumni. It's great to have you guys here on the webinar, and I look forward to engaging with you today about workplace wellness and also answering any questions that you may have. So we are going to start by just kind of covering our agenda for today. I think Jeff pretty much covered my background, and so we will be talking about, based off of my experiences and my training, both on the professional side as well as the health and wellness side, kind of what the current landscape looks like for busy professionals. And then we'll talk about some key ideas around things like exercise, nutrition, sleep, productivity, making time for what I like to call the 3 F's, which are family, friends, and fun, learning how to claim time for yourself, practicing mindfulness in ways that are meaningful to you, and then some key takeaways. So we're going to actually pull up our first poll question, Jeff, if you could do that. And the question is, do you have a wellness program at work? So yes, no, not sure, or no votes. So if you guys want to just take a quick second to poll that, that'd be great.
Reena, are you able to see those answers as they're coming in?
I am, yes.
Perfect.
This is
Okay,
great.
awesome. Well, the good
Okay,
news here is at least people are aware. We don't have anybody saying not sure yet.
that's right. That's very good. So it's looking like it's fewer people have, well, now we're at 50-50. Okay. Any other answers coming in? Okay. So we're at about 50-50, which that sounds about right. I think there are definitely a lot of companies that are implementing workplace wellness programs and many that are probably still trying to figure out how to prioritize it. So it's just good to know kind of a real life scenario with those that are on the call, kind of what you're experiencing today at work. Great. Okay. So basically, the current landscape for busy professionals, it's very interesting. According to the National Institute of Health and the American Medical Association, 3 out of 4 doctors' visits are for stress-related ailments. Stress is the basic cause of 60% of all human illness and disease. That's a really alarming number. And 44% of Americans feel more stressed out than they did 5 years ago. I believe it, especially for me working and living in Silicon Valley, and I think there's many other, parts of the world and parts of the country where people are feeling the stress, right? When you're working in an innovative area, the bar is high, it's very competitive. You're trying to manage your family as well. Technology makes us all connected pretty much 24/7. It does create a more stressful environment. And what's interesting is that according to Forbes, even though corporate wellness is a nearly $40 billion industry worldwide, only 9% of the 3+ billion global workforce actually has access to these workplace wellness programs within their jobs. And that may not even be for companies that don't have the programs. It's just that many leaders may be skeptical of wellness programs, so the investments may not be very big, or even if they are making an investment, you'll often find where, certain management teams don't support it. So people may not feel comfortable taking advantage of the wellness program that is offered to them at their workplace. But we're seeing that stress is real. It can lead to things like overeating, a lack of exercise, poor sleep, feelings of anxiety. I definitely saw this with coworkers. I worked for many Fortune 500 companies for many years, like Google and Yahoo. I worked for Reebok actually full time while I was at BU, part time working on my master's, GE, and many other companies. And so I've seen it. I've experienced burnout. My husband and I definitely over the years have had to figure out how do we balance our careers with 2 young children. And it's not easy. And I think people are feeling stressed at work, stressed at home. We're often multitasking mavens. And I think, people are wanting some support. And I think people are in need of some empowerment. How can we change this current landscape that we're in for the better? So, with that, we're going to actually go to our second poll question. So, Jeff, if you want to pull that one up. And the question is, and you guys feel free to be honest, how there's no right or wrong answer, you won't get penalized. How many times a week do you exercise? Is it every day? Is it a few days a week, once a week, or not at all, or no vote? So feel free to put in your answers. We'll give it a couple more seconds here. Okay, so we're seeing about the majority at a few days a week, which that's good. That sounds realistic, I'm sure, for busy professionals. If anybody else wants to put in their answers, feel free to go ahead before we close the poll. Okay, so the poll is closed. So it looks like about almost 54% of you are exercising a few days a week. Okay, that's good to hear. So there's some interesting stats that I have for you on exercise. So for me, exercise is something that I very much value. I've actually been a certified fitness instructor for many, many years. I even would teach when I worked my day job in marketing and sales and business development. I would often teach fitness classes at the corporate fitness centers of the companies that I worked for. I did that at Google. I did that at Reebok and other companies as well. But what we're seeing is that only 21% of adults have been meeting the weekly guidelines for physical activity according to the Centers for Disease Control. The reality is that we all need a combination of cardio, strength training, and flexibility work for about 150 minutes per week if we're doing it at a moderate level. If you're exercising at a more intense level, a total of 75 minutes per week is sufficient according to the American Heart Association. You can divvy that up any way that you want, whether it's 5 days a week at 30 minutes per day or some other combination. But ultimately, exercise helps with weight management, stress management, disease prevention, and physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health and well being. So, the key here is to find times of the day where you can realistically fit in time to exercise, whether that's mornings before work, whether that's lunchtime at work. A lot of companies, do have workplace wellness programs. I know we were at about the 50 mark when you guys answered that question. And I'm hoping that that does include, some sort of a corporate fitness center or a place to exercise while you're at work. But then there's other options as well. If you maybe don't have the time during your workday, you could do things like walking meetings with your team and your coworkers. You could do apps. There's a lot of great online videos and fitness apps for at-home workouts, or if you're traveling for work, you can do these things in your hotel room. My has a lot of great fitness information through that app. So nowadays, what I like to say, it's important to use technology for good. Technology can often rob us of our wellness because we're always connected. It makes us more stressed because we're constantly working. But at the same time, if you can leverage some of these health and wellness apps or online video, that's a way to use technology for good. But the key is to find, whether it's your colleagues, your friends, your neighbors, your children, significant others, or other people in your life, you want to find people who can hold you accountable and who you can hold accountable so that you can stay on track when it comes to your exercise regimen. There's also a lot of great wearable devices these days with Fitbit, the Apple Watch, Strava, and other things to be able to track things like your steps, your calories, your heart rate, all that type of stuff. And at the end of the day, data provides awareness, it provides power, and it provides motivation. So I would definitely encourage you to be honest with yourself about, when is a time where you're going to be most motivated to fit it in, and think about your typical work week. And if you can incorporate it into the workday, or, if you need to incorporate it before or after work, how can you do that in an efficient way that doesn't necessarily take away from time from your family or time from your work? Okay, so what you eat really matters as well. So this is another really important thing. These tips are not necessarily rocket science, obviously, but it's the philosophies behind them and the practical tools and tips that we're talking about today, which are what I'm hoping you guys will take back with you, and hopefully you can try to incorporate this into your professional life and your personal life as well. So, according to the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition, typical diets in the US, this may be different in other parts of the world, and I know we have people globally here on the call today, but at least in the US, the diets far exceed the recommended levels of sugars, fats, refined grains, and sodium. There was also a study done through the Centers for Disease Control, and between the years 2011 and 2014, almost 37% of US adults were obese. That number continues to climb, and it's very alarming because, obesity can lead to so many other health issues like cancer, like diabetes, heart disease, and other things. So it's really important to think about what you are putting into your body and also figure out how, even during your workday, you can leverage things like on site cafes or healthy delivery services at work, or even food that you're bringing from home, to make smart choices. And not only during the workday, but also when you're cooking meals at home. Because what you eat impacts how you feel and how you function. It's important to practice portion control. And what you see here on the right of this slide, and this is from the Harvard School of Public Health. I actually have this chart on my refrigerator to make sure that my kids and my husband, kind of have a good understanding of what we should be eating and of how much. I find it to be really useful and just kind of a good, reminder of, how much vegetables you should be having, fruits, whole grains, healthy proteins, and then where do oils and fats fit into that? How much should should you be drinking for proper hydration. So at the end of the day, you really want to focus on loading up on fruits and vegetables that are plant-based, grown from the ground, rich in nutrients, antioxidants, and vitamins such as potassium, fiber, vitamin C, vitamin A, etc. Some good examples of these types of fruits and vegetables are kale, spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, berries, oranges, apples, bananas, grapes, etc. The ideal thing is to have a more colorful plate. So the more colorful your plate is, the better. They often say try to eat all the colors of the rainbow. When I worked at Google, one of the things that I thought was really great was in all of the on-site cafes, they would color code the foods. So green was obviously the healthiest. Yellow was kind of in the middle, and then red was almost like a red flag warning, like, this probably isn't the best for you. And I think that really did help employees to make healthy food decisions, especially when they were at work. Because when you think about it, we all spend a lot of time at work, at the office, if we work outside the home. And so you want to make sure that those healthy eating choices are carrying on into your work life as well as your home life. When it comes to proteins, a lot of people are vegetarian. Many people are not vegetarian, but it's important to get lean protein. So this can come from things like beans, lentils, tofu, nuts, seeds, turkey, chicken, and red meat in moderation. Obviously, if you're needing some more iron, that is something you might want to have occasionally, but you definitely don't want to be eating steak and red meat on a regular basis. It's not necessarily good for the heart. But fish, once or twice a week is very healthy. It's high in omega-3 fatty acids. It's good for your brain development. And as long as you're not having it every day of the week, where mercury levels could get impacted, once or twice a week is very good for you and very healthy. When it comes to things like carbohydrates and whole grains, I think there have been a lot of different types of debate about are carbs good, are they bad? My philosophy is moderation is key, and it's important to be able to, again, going back to this healthy eating plate from the Harvard School of Public Health, kind of balancing all of it, right? And if you're eating the healthy carbohydrates like complex carbohydrates, whole grains that you can find in things like brown rice, quinoa, whole grain bread, pastas, things like that, that's okay. And as long as you are limiting the amounts of carbohydrates that you're eating, and maybe eating them earlier on in the day. I personally, for myself, my family, and I often tell my clients, eat your carbohydrates earlier on, like at breakfast time, at lunch, so that then you're actually able to get the energy you need during your workday, during, even on the weekends. But then as the day goes on, you want to kind of start to, trickle down on the carbohydrates that you're taking in when you're going to be less active. And so as you get to dinner time, you probably want to have very little carbohydrates, if any at all. But that's kind of a good rule of thumb for those of you out there that are parents. Obviously, it's a very different philosophy when it comes to your kids because they're still growing. They're going to obviously need to be getting lots of carbohydrates for energy. So you just want to think about your whole family, think about what you're doing at work, what you're putting in their lunch boxes for school, and just making sure that you're being really balanced. When it comes to things like dairy, I think, again, there's a lot of debate. There are a lot of people who might be lactose intolerant. There are a lot of studies out there that show that you don't need dairy. Again, my philosophy is moderation is key. So if you're sticking to things like low-fat dairy in milk, yogurt, and cheese, I think if you're not lactose intolerant, dairy does provide things like calcium and protein. Again, in moderation, I think it's perfectly fine to include. Healthy fats and oils are also really important. The Mediterranean diet is one that really emphasizes that. So there are the good fats and the bad fats. So you want to focus on the monosaturated fats that you can find in things like olive or canola oil, nuts, avocado, seeds, and things of that nature. What you want to limit are, sugar, refined carbohydrates that you would find in white bread, white rice, white pasta, cakes, cookies, donuts, things like that. And oftentimes in the workplace, there are still vending machines that are out there and, micro kitchens that are stocked with, cookies and candy and things like that. And it's important to move away from that. I think there are, again, companies like Google and others that are doing a really good job of moving away from that. But even if it is around you, it's important to stay away from that during the workday. And then finally, when it comes to water and hydration, there's a lot of schools of thought. I think the old saying is drink 8 8-ounce glasses of water per day. But I think, my philosophy is important to drink half your body weight in ounces of water because we're all different shapes and sizes, and we all have different consumptions of water that will work best for us. So just another rule of thumb. Okay, so now we're going to get into sleep. This is kind of the third idea for health and wellness, both at the workplace and then even on the personal side. So it's interesting because insufficient sleep has actually become a public health epidemic, according to the Centers for Disease Control. And there are an estimated 50 to 70 million US adults that have sleep disorders. Many of you might have heard of Ariana Huffington. She ran the Huffington Post. Excuse me. And she left to start a company called Thrive Global and has done a lot of work and research and public speaking on the concept of sleep. She herself had had a lot of health problems that resulted from insomnia and sleep issues. And I think that's definitely the case for a lot of executives and a lot of professionals who are under a lot of stress. But the thing is that sleep deprivation can cause a lack of alertness. It can impact your performance at work as well as at home. It can impact your memory as well as your cognitive functioning. Ongoing sleep loss can actually negatively impact your quality of life, your relationships, and even your safety. They often say that when you're under the influence of alcohol and you're driving, that is almost equivalent to being sleep deprived and driving in terms of the dangers. So it is something that can be very serious. Lack of sleep can actually increase your stress and cortisol levels. It can cause you to eat more and gain weight. You can feel more sluggish, not in the mood to exercise. It can make you more emotional and cause you to lose perspective, perhaps make mistakes at work. So it's really important to try to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. Now, everyone's a little bit different on that. Some people may be, needing closer to 10. Some people may be fine to get by just with 7, but you probably want to stay within that 7 to 8 hour range on average. And what's important is to try to practice good sleep hygiene. And this comes down to the environment that you create, even the aesthetics of your bedroom. When you think about the colors of your walls, having more calming colors can really help. The type of bedding that you have, the thread count of your sheets, the lighting, the temperature of your room, things like noise control, whether or not you allow screens and mobile devices and things in your room or not. Those are all things to consider. We're all different on that, but I think everybody probably at one point or another has, you know, checked email on their phone right before going to bed, or they work on their laptop in bed. I think we're all guilty of doing it. But the problem is, then your mind is racing with thoughts of work. You might be feeling stressed, and of course, that's going to impact the quality of your sleep. So it's important to, if you need to get some work done, if you need to check a little bit of work email before you go to bed, build in at least some block of time so that you can really unwind and get your mind away from work. Put your device away so that you're not tempted to use it, and then try to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day for consistency. There are a lot of great sleep apps out there like Sleepbot, MotionX, Fitbit. There's often apps excuse me, with calming music to help you fall asleep. Another thing that I definitely do and I recommend to my clients is to keep a notebook on your nightstand. So if you have a bunch of things on your to-do list or work related projects that are just occupying your mind, write down what you need to get done, and then that will give you kind of the space to put it in a place where you know you're going to be accountable for it. You're going to take care of it the next day, but that will free you up to be able to, sleep peacefully and not have to worry about it. Okay. So the next one is about getting organized and being productive. So what we see is, according to a Gallup study, unhappy employees with lower productivity actually cost businesses $300 billion per year in lost productivity. Productivity is a very important component of wellness, as well as your personal and professional growth and development. So, what's important is to make weekly to do lists for work and for home. and leverage, whether it's written to-do lists or online tools. There's some great ones like Todoist or Wunderlist, to be able to really organize what it is that you need to get done. Now, I will admit when I was in college and grad school, I was that person that would create a list of 30 things that I wanted to get done for that day, right? And I would try to be an overachiever and work really hard and plow through the day to try to get everything done. And what I found was I was basically setting myself up for failure, because there's no way you can get through a list of 30 things, especially if they're, high value, high strategic projects. So what I kind of switched to was picking three, maybe 3 to 5 of the most important needle moving, strategic, revenue generating, to-dos that you need to get done for work. And then also the most important things that you need to get done for home, and try to get those things done. Stay focused, work hard. And if you get through those things, great. Even if you don't, I think it's important to cut yourself some slack and know that you can get to those things the next day if you didn't get to it the day before. But when I was at Google, I actually took a wonderful class. It's called Managing Your Energy and Not Your Time. And it was put on by the Energy Project. And in that class, one of the things that I learned that I wanted to share with you guys is that it's very important to take breaks every 90 minutes when you're working. Because there's just no way that we can focus beyond that period of time. So, what was suggested in that class was if you're doing work, do it for 90 minutes and then take a break. Go outside, talk to your coworkers, get some fresh air, maybe get a glass of water, and clear your head, and then try to come back and tackle your work again. It's just a really important way to make sure that you're producing high quality work and you're not overloading yourself and trying so hard to plow through the day in a way that you're going to make mistakes and maybe not produce your best work. The other thing that's really important is to plan a reward for yourself and celebrate your successes at the end of each week. For any of you that are parents that are out there, we often try to motivate our kids with things like stickers and toys for, behaviors that we want them to practice. But who's to say that we can't also plan some rewards for ourselves? Maybe it's, if you get through, all your key things you need to do for work that month or that, week, you can plan, a massage at the spa or a golf outing with your buddies or whatever it might be. So it's important to really give yourself that chance to celebrate your successes. And again, don't be hard on yourself if you don't get through everything, because I think there's that saying, even when you die, your inbox is still going to be full. That to-do list is still going to be there. It will never fully go away. But the best thing we can do is prioritize, make lists of the most important things, and really work, taking breaks every 90 minutes to kind of produce our best work. The other thing that's really important is what's called a growth mindset. My kids actually are in elementary school and their school practices this. And if anybody hasn't heard of what it is, the growth mindset, I think it can be applied to professionals as well as students. And it's to enjoy the process and the journey along the way, the key learnings that you have, instead of always obsessing over the outcomes. Now, I understand we all have revenue goals we might need to hit. We have, very important projects that need to be completed against deadlines. So, yes, the outcome, the results are very important. But at the same time, if you don't give yourself the chance to appreciate what you're learning and how you're growing along the way, it's just going to be a more stressful process and less enjoyable. So I think it is important to focus on how you're growing and how you're developing both personally and professionally, and giving yourself a chance to really celebrate that journey and everything along the way. Okay. So idea number 5, and I apologize, guys. I am just getting over the flu. All this talk about health and wellness. And of course, I get hit with the flu this week. But the next idea is about making time for what I call the 3 F's, which are family, friends, and fun. This is actually a picture of myself and my husband and my 2 kids. But there was actually a survey that was featured in Daily Mail. And what came out of that survey is that parents, especially working parents, have been spending an average of less than 8 hours with their kids per week. And there's no judgment in that, because I think we have all had times in our professional lives where if we're having to work late, we're having to travel a little bit more than we would like, we do end up spending less time with our families and our children. But when you think about it, 8 hours per week, I mean, 8 hours is a typical work day. And if you're spending that amount of time with your kids in a given week, It's unfortunate, right? Because we're all working so hard. We want to provide good lives for our families, but what is life for? What is all that hard work for if you aren't really taking the time to focus on the things that matter most? At the end of the day, your family, your friends, your life experiences, your community, those are all things that truly matter and they help you to be the best version of yourself, both professionally and personally. I just wanted to add this as, something to remember. Treasure your family, love them, enjoy your time with them, because it's also critical to your health and happiness to make family, friends, and fun a priority in your life. It'll make work that much more worth it because you're working towards, having, a better overall life so that you can truly enjoy the time with the ones that mean the most to you. Okay, idea number six, and I know I'm going to probably try to wrap this up in the next 5 to 10 minutes so that we have some time for questions. But claiming time for yourself, I think this is one that is often difficult for many people to do. I will admit for myself as well. But according to WebMD, many people, especially women, can often be less happy than they were 40 years ago because they don't have as much time for themselves. But that's something that I think is important for all of us to be aware of and to work on changing because in order to be at your best professionally as a boss, as a teammate, as an employee, whether you're a parent, whether you're a significant other, a friend, a student, or any other roles that you play in your life to other people, you need to have time for yourself. And I think this is a really overlooked area because many people are so busy taking care of everyone else. They're busy taking care of all their demands at work, and it leaves very little time for themselves. But, I want to tell all of you to give yourselves permission to recharge. And you can find whether it's a bath at night, a good book, a movie, a night out with your friends, a massage, or whatever it is that's going to allow you the chance to relax, unwind, and reconnect with yourself. Maybe it's a sporting event. It's just important to find what makes you happy and what's going to really bring you back into balance so that, again, you can perform your best at work, but then you can also be present and there for your family members as well. Okay, and our last idea here is about mindfulness. And this one is actually really interesting because, according to a study within the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, only 8% of US adults actually use meditation. And it's interesting because I understand meditation isn't something that is 100% mainstream yet, but I do think that it is becoming a bigger and more important part of not only people's personal lives, but their professional lives as well. When I was at Google, Google actually has meditation sessions on campus that they offer 3 times a day for employees in the morning, at lunchtime, and then in the afternoon. And you'll often see a lot of very famous leaders, like Steve Jobs. When he was alive, he was very, very much a proponent of meditation. Jeff Weiner, the CEO of LinkedIn, is very much known for being somebody who meditates and really tries to bring that into the workplace. So there's lots of different ways, I think, to bring mindfulness into your life. Even 5 minutes a day can create positive results. And mindfulness doesn't have to be complicated. And I think it can mean different things for different people. You simply want to take time every day, whether that's to just be in silence, close your eyes, take some deep breaths. That could be, meditation or mindfulness for some people. For others, maybe it's going for a run. A lot of you in Boston, I remember when I lived there, I used to love to run along the Charles River. I found that to be just very relaxing, a great way to clear my mind. That can be mindfulness, right? Maybe it's a hike through the woods. Maybe it's taking a yoga class. So the important thing is to figure out what works for you. Nobody is saying you have to sit for 30 minutes and meditate and focus. I think for a lot of us, that's just not realistic, myself included. We're all busy people. We have a lot going on, but completely ignoring that and not taking even a few minutes a day just to center yourself is it's a missed opportunity. And there are a lot of great guided meditation apps out there. So again, in the spirit of using technology for good, some of my favorites are apps from Deepak Chopra. Headspace is another one that I really like. And these are guided meditations where they can kind of just tell you, how to focus on your breath, how to have body awareness. So for those of you that maybe have a tough time focusing and concentrating, I find personally that the guided meditations really work because then you've got somebody telling you what to focus on. And over time, maybe then you'll be able to do that for yourself. But usually these apps have very calming music, a very calming voice, and just allows you to be able to, again, center your mind, calm your body down, and really, recharge your batteries. This is something that kids can do as well. I actually do meditation with my kids before bedtime. I have a couple of apps that are specifically made for kids, so they're very age appropriate. I also offer a yoga program in my son's schools that I've been doing for many, many years, and even have a YouTube workout video, which is yoga for moms and kids on my YouTube channel. So I am a huge believer in the power of mindfulness, not only for adults, but really teaching children to learn these lifelong skills at a young age as well. It will allow them the skills early on in life to be able to manage stress. And in general, mindfulness will help you to manage stress, stay calm and centered, be grateful, be of service to others, and really recharge yourself from the inside out. Okay, so just to kind of wrap up what we talked about today, I hope that these tips were useful, but exercise really is key. Again, finding ways to incorporate it into your workday or your home life through apps, corporate fitness centers, online video, equipment at home. Again, the key is just to find people that can help hold you accountable and who you can hold accountable as well. What you eat really matters both at the office and at home. So, really think about portion control, that healthy eating plate that I showed you from the Harvard School of Public Health, and just really being able to, incorporate healthy, organic, natural foods into your diet. Sleep, again, is so important for your overall cognitive functioning, your performance at work at home. Getting organized and productive, again, using different types of tools, making to do lists, rewarding yourself, and learning to take breaks every 90 minutes is really important. Making time for, again, the three F's, your family, friends, and fun. In my opinion, that's what life is all about. That's why we're all working so hard. So try to remember that and don't forget, keep your eye on the prize, keep your eye on the things that are most important. And that's going to be different for everybody. But hopefully, something in one of those categories is important to you. Claim time for yourself. Again, in order to do your best personally and professionally, it's important to carve that time out. And then finally, figuring out mindfulness in ways that works for you. So figuring out how you can even take 5 minutes of your day to center yourselves and clear your minds can really go a long way, again, in both your professional life and your personal life. And with that, my closing thought is this quote from Mahatma Gandhi: "It is health that is real wealth and not pieces of gold and silver." And I want to thank you guys all for your time. I know you're busy, but I think you all made a really great investment in yourselves and your own health and well being. So thank you for taking the time to be here today. Here is all of my contact information if you want to reach out at any time. Some of the services that I offer for Passion Fit are I write a blog both on my website and for third party sites like Shape Magazine and Working Mother Magazine and some local news publications, Live Strong as well. But I write about nutrition, mindfulness, exercise, work life balance. I also offer wellness consulting services for individuals and groups. I speak to companies, universities, nonprofits, and schools, and I teach fitness and dance classes and also offer online workout videos on my Passion Fit YouTube channel. So you can reach me on social media, on my website, my email, my phone, everything is there if you have any questions or if I can help in any way. And with that, Jeff, I guess we'll open it up for questions.
Awesome, Reena. Thank you so much. And while we
Problem.
wait for a couple questions to come in here, I'm going to get us kicked off with a question of my own.
Hmm.
You talked about sort of 7 ideas, and as I'm listening to you go through them, each one of them could have been their own hour-long webinar. Um,
Absolutely.
where do you suggest, I think about my own situation, obviously, as we're going through this, and, I'm eating terrible. I'm a new parent. I'm not getting any exercise. I'm not getting a ton of sleep. Where would you suggest that somebody like me get started? I don't know that I can take on all these things at once.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff, and I empathize with you because it is tough, especially when you're a new parent and you're trying to balance that with your career as well. I would say the first place to start is actually sleep. And I know that's hard with a baby, but without sleep, that if that's kind of not in place, then everything else gets affected, right? If you're not sleeping, then it's hard to have the energy to exercise. It's hard to make the healthy eating choices and to be productive and to prioritize all these other things. So I would say start with that. If there's a way for you and your wife to kind of figure out shifts and things with the baby so that you're both are somehow able to get a total, like a cumulative of 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, that would really do you a lot of good so that then you can focus on some of these other areas. And I know that's easier said than done with a baby. I've been there.
Well, actually, I'm pretty lucky. Our son sleeps pretty well, but certainly we could all use more sleep. So thank you for that. We do have a question from my friend Kim, and this was something I was actually thinking about doing as well. Um, you mentioned so many valuable resources. I'm wondering if we could use this chat box that I've just opened. And so, for example, I know that you mentioned Headspace as an app that you recommend for folks that are interested in getting started with meditation.
Mhm.
Kim is asking specifically if you mentioned one that kids might find helpful. Reena, could you remind us about some of those apps and online resources that you thought were helpful? I know you talked about a couple that were related to to-do lists.
Yes. So to answer the first question about the apps for meditation for kids, the one that
Yep.
I really recommend and love is it's through Deepak Chopra, and it's called Ananda Kids, Ananda, Ananda Kids.
ANADA kids.
Yeah, let me make sure I have the right spelling here.
Is that right?
It is actually I'm pulling it's Ananda Kids. And that there you go. Yep. And that one is great because it's very age appropriate. They actually, they talk about things that a kid could relate to, homework or, sports or whatever it might be. So I do find that one really great. In
Hmm.
terms of the to-do list ones, there is Todoist. So the spelling for that one is Todoist,
Hmm.
and then Wunderlist, Wunderlist. Now, I will admit I'm kind of old school. I actually like to write my to-do list in a notebook still, but I know that a lot of people really benefit from having kind of these online tools. So those are two really good ones.
And you're probably talking about these things all the time on your blog, right?
I do often talk about these things. Yeah, I actually have a blog post on my website about technology and different, not only apps, but websites and other resources that I find to be really helpful. So yeah, I would definitely recommend if you go to passionfit.com in my blog section, there's a post specifically about technology.
Awesome. Great.
Great questions.
Um, well, unfortunately, we've got a bit of a silent audience today. So, any last chance? We've got an expert who's given up a lot of her time today. So, folks, don't be shy. Feel free to weigh in. Uh, and While we're waiting, I want to make sure that people know that in March, we actually have 9 different professional development webinars coming up as part of our annual Alumni Career Weeks series. We're actually going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 career-related events, both online and in cities around the globe. And so I encourage all of you to check those out at our website. It's bu.edu/careerweeks. Again, 9 great webinars. Reena, that seems like it today.
Okay,
Unfortunately, we don't have any other questions, but I personally really enjoyed listening to your webinar, and I know my goal tonight is going to be go home and get a good night's sleep. So, thank you again for your time. Thank you for sharing this great information with our alumni, and
sure.
best of luck with your business.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for your time, and thanks for having me, Jeff. It was really great to be here today.
It's our pleasure. My thanks also go out to all of our guests for participating today. I specifically want to thank those of you who've donated to BU in the past. And as always, if you or any BU alumni you know might be interested in hosting a professional development webinar such as this one, feel free to contact me at the Alumni Relations Office or by email at jtmurphy@bu.edu. Thank you everybody for your time. Have a great day or a great evening wherever you might be.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.